Hello, we are live. This is I Need Living Conversations. This is our 199th conversation. I got the number wrong last time. I said in 197, it was 198. So this is 199, and we are on the second version of the principle of oneness, Ubuntu. So we're going to continue what we started on last week's conversation, and there's going to be probably lots of information about this. So you want to pay close attention and open your heart, open your mind to what's coming. Be patient because it's loads of information and it's not always, this is not entertainment. This is not junk information. This is real information for you. So please pay special attention. I am Julian Catari from Jalapa, Veracruz, and you're going to be getting your lesson, your information from Blue Heron Woman, who's in Indianola, Oklahoma. So welcome, everyone, to 199 I Need Living Conversations.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, up to
it really is.
200, almost, yeah. Next week is 200. We got to have a party.
Yeah, for sure. And we must, because we're right in the in between time of two extremely powerful eclipses. So,
Okay, when's the next one coming?
The 21st, right on the 21st, the new moon solar eclipse, or the solar eclipse.
So it's
with the equinox. It's the new moon.
It's the equinox, and we get a solar eclipse, which is going to be seen. Do you know where? Because not here, not in America.
It's not a total.
Okay.
It's not a total eclipse. It's just the fact that this full moon eclipse that we couldn't see from the Americas was the most potent eclipse in the last 18 years. Okay. And Grandmother Moon crossed galactic center for the first time in 18 years also. Okay. A couple weeks ago.
Okay. So lots of events happening. Okay.
Lots and lots of astrological events, and they all impact us. Absolutely impact us. So we're right in this window, according in Ayurveda or in Vedic astrology. This window between is the time to really tune into our ancestors, for their and guidance. Between these two eclipses, so let's go back to a little bit more about the God concept. So Spinoza's God and Max Planck's universal mind is not a bearded two-legged being on a throne out there in the sky somewhere. It is the formless intelligence that animates all forms. We're really hitting on this hard because I was raised, it never tuned into the fact that I believed that God was a two-legged male out there somewhere, and it's finally hit me hard that was my belief, and that's probably all Christians' belief, even though they haven't really thought about it. But so everything we experience is a ripple in the boundless ocean of mind, and our individual minds are like waves on its surface. And while we appear separate, along with all the 10,000 things in our world, we are all expressions of this formless consciousness or mind or God process. And again, I'm going to use that a lot because God is an acronym for galactic ordering dynamic, which is a process. To Max Planck, this wasn't just philosophy. Max Planck is the father of quantum physics, right? It was a logical, rational conclusion of quantum theory, because if nothing can exist independently of observation, then everything must be entangled within a single field of knowing. And that's what the 0-point field is, this single field of knowing, the single field of vital intelligence, it can be given so many names, right? So when we can understand this, then we can really know that we're not random specks in a dead universe, rather that we are conscious expressions of this vital intelligence consciousness that holds the cosmos together. And it means that our thoughts, our awareness, our ability to witness beauty and feel love are not side effects. They are foundational phenomena, more real than the stars out there. So Planck's and Spinoza's view gives science a soul and invites us to explore reality with intuition, reflection, and reverence. It bridges the divide between science and spirituality, suggesting that what the mystic sees in meditation and what the physicist finds in quantum equations are two languages describing the same truth. That mind is the matrix of matter and the cosmos is conscious. Max Planck's statement of, "I regard matter as derivative from consciousness," can remind us that behind every moment of our lives is the silent, invisible presence of a universal mind. Centuries ago, someone created a fictitious anthropomorphic God with human passion, jealousy, and revenge. And since then, we have lived lives as slaves to this superstition.
Mm.
Our ancestors, Spinoza and then Max Planck, all knew or discovered that consciousness or universal mind is without personality, without human emotion. It's just pure beingness. It's impersonal and it's just pure beingness. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, all the pure traditions became corrupted by the need to create idols, superstitious rituals, and power hierarchies. Buddha originally taught that suffering comes from attachment to things and ignorance about reality's true nature. He never proclaimed himself a god or demanded worship. His teaching was purely rational about understanding the causes of human suffering and how to liberate ourselves through correct knowledge and wisdom. Then Buddhism fell into the hands of humans who preferred superstition to rational knowledge, and so it has become a religion full of gods, demons, and promises of afterlife and heavenly paradises. Everything that Buddha originally rejected. Spinoza said that this comes from our fear of the freedom that comes with true knowledge and wisdom. It's more comfortable to believe that a superpower controls everything, which you can influence through prayers, offerings, and rituals, than to accept that you are completely responsible for your own life and happiness. Confucius developed an ethical system based on reason, education, social responsibility, and moral character cultivation. He focused on how to live well in the real world, and he understood that true morality doesn't need threats of divine punishment or promises of heavenly rewards. It arises naturally when we understand our true social nature and our interdependence with other humans and our more than human life world. Again, his teachings were transformed into an institutionalized religion with temples, rituals, and veneration of Confucius himself, exactly what he would have detested. And Spinoza's analysis shows that all organized religions, without exception, eventually become corrupted because they become instruments of political and social control. Religious and political leaders discover it's much easier to control people through fear, guilt, and vague promises of salvation than through informal education and critical thinking development.
Mm-hmm.
Confucianism was distorted to justify rigid social hierarchies, and then Taoism was transformed into a search for physical immortality, and Buddhism became a system of wealthy temples charging for spiritual services. And again, Spinoza said this happens because most people prefer being governed by others to taking responsibility through governing themselves with reason and critical, skeptical, curious thinking. The Tao teaches us that happiness comes from living in harmony with natural laws, not from trying to control them with magical rituals. Buddha taught that our suffering is caused by our ignorance of how reality works and that correct knowledge liberates us. Confucius taught that ethical life arises naturally when we understand our true relationship with other humans and all of creation. And Jesus taught that there was no way to peace, but peace is the way, and that there's no way to happiness, but happiness is the way. And there's no way to love because love is the way. The tragedy is that these profound truths became buried under layers of superstitions, meaningless rituals, and power structures to exploit our ignorance. And the difference lies between using reason to understand reality versus using imagination to create controlling fantasies. So when these ancient systems of belief are used as practical systems for understanding reality and living according to our true nature, they really are extraordinarily useful. But when and that's what we do at Uttleville's. We don't practice them as superstitions promising magical powers and supernatural salvation, which creates illusion and suffering. So what Spinoza said is there are no inferior or superior religions. There are only more or less rational ways of understanding our human condition and our relationship with all of life. For him, as with most indigenous cultures and our animistic ancestors, true spirituality is a feeling of reverence and wonder that arises when we understand our true connection through rational knowledge. And when you understand this, it threatens the system based on people's control over you. And you can understand reality yourself through your own reason and experience, and you don't need religious or political intermediaries telling you what to think or how to live. And this is liberating for us and threatening to the power systems that depend on us being dependent. What these ancient systems knew is that mind and body are not two different substances, but different aspects of the same reality, and that human happiness truly depends on us living according to our true integrated nature and in harmony with our more than human life world. So artificial dualisms were created when these systems became institutionalized to justify power hierarchies and keep people dependent on external authority. Popular Taoism created an artificial duality between material and spiritual and the search for physical immortality. Popular Buddhism created a duality between the present and the future, and popular Confucianism created a duality between divine rulers and mortal subjects. And Christianity has created a dualism between an off-planet creator and his creation. So how do we keep this from happening as we explore and discover our integrated vast self in Uttleville societies? Well, by distinguishing between the eternal wisdom that exists and is ever expanding and the superstitions that have been built around what we know. And we need intellectual courage to keep what is true and useful and expand into more and bigger ideas and philosophies while discarding what is harmful, false, and limiting. Buddha, Confucius, Lao Tzu, and Jesus were not special prophets receiving divine revelations. They were wise visionaries who allowed themselves to perceive aspects of reality outside the norm. They were seers, as Don Juan Carlos Castaneda's teacher would say. Mm-hmm. Genuine compassion arises when we understand that we all act according to our nature and circumstances. So each of us must discover for ourselves what our true nature is and how to live according to it. And intellectual freedom means that we have the right and responsibility to build our own life philosophy worldview based on our expanded knowledge and direct experience, not on others' authority. This requires courage because it means taking total responsibility for our choices and their consequences. And it means creating our own ethical guidelines and assuming the consequences of our successes and failures. Divine truths from the universal mind, though, has its persuasive force to prevail over fear and ignorance. So we can never let go and think all is lost. So each individual's journey of self-discovery and self-liberation means developing our own capacity to think and live well. We already have everything we need to be free and happy. The greatest human joy comes from knowing our own true nature and living by it. And there's no joy greater than the freedom that comes with authentic self-knowledge. This joy doesn't depend on religious beliefs. It depends on our courage to be honest with ourselves about who we really are and how we can contribute to life. As Confucius carefully observed human nature, he developed a concept called Ren, meaning humanity or benevolence. And he realized that we are fundamentally social beings and that our identity and well-being depend on the quality of our relationships with each other. So treating others with respect and consideration isn't just a moral obligation, it's an intellectual strategy for our own happiness.
Mm-hmm.
In Spinoza's ethics, geometrically demonstrated that our joy increases when we contribute to others' joy, and our sadness decreases when we reduce suffering around us. Not because of moral laws imposed by gods, but because of our own divine psychological and social nature. So all these men we've talked about were visionaries, and a vision is the soul drinking light. And the vision gives the perceiver the energy to do it, to bring the vision to reality. And every single one of us are meant to be visionaries. So let's go back to, and I'm going to be separating these. There's divine truths, and then there's the God process, the principles. Like oneness is a principle. So how does consciousness become matter? That's the principles.
Okay.
So another way to describe consciousness or mind is to say it's universal life force energy, and it manifests itself in varying levels of density. And this comes from a visionary out of Japan called Jiro Murai, long dead, but and also a visionary of the Picaros Pueblo in New Mexico. Breath is the basic expression of this consciousness or mind. Breath enables us to unload accumulated stress and stagnant energy via exhalation, and within each inhalation, we receive an abundance of fresh, purified energy. Consciousness or mind or universal life force energy can be called the depths or the God process, and this Japanese visionary called them depths. He discovered 9 depths. He was given a vision of 9 depths.
Okay.
Which goes along with the Mayans' 9 underworlds.
Yeah.
Or we could call it the God process, the galactic ordering dynamic process by which consciousness or life energy becomes matter, and each step is built on the preceding step. The depths or the God process can also be understood as dimensions of being, each one responsible for a specific set of functions within our body, mind, and spirit. Pure consciousness or life energy is the 9th depth, and each one of us is still connected to this 9th depth. We're part of it. It's the total void of nothingness, of just pure vacuum, of pure power. The process by which consciousness, mind, or universal life energy individuates itself and becomes manifest is densing down, because it's so powerful. It is that pure void is just pure power. So it has to be toned down. It has to be densed down, meaning it undergoes stages of contraction to make it appear as matter. So the process of contraction begins at the 8th depth, which can be referred to as the dot. So this is the idea of oneness or principle, or oneness or unity. So out in the ocean of consciousness, mind, or life force energy, a flash or a principal idea descends through the infinite vastness as a downward flow of feminine energy. And so spirit, this feminine energy, falls until the infinite vastness of the 8th depth stops it. And at this point, it's still perceptual and not yet material. And this is where then, as it becomes material, the unfolding is the masculine. This is why this is the first, this comes from the visionary Joseph Real who's the Picaros Pueblo in New Mexico. It's the first time I've heard the descending energy be called feminine, and it makes sense, because this is why all babies start life as females. And right? So the downward flow, everyone else has the downward flow as being male, masculine energy. It's the yin. It's the yin that gives the ideas. That's why Spider Woman, right? It's a downward flow. So So then when we split to, so then we get into the duality, the gender, the polarity. This is now the seventh depth, and the life energy has condensed into light. This depth provides each of us with the spark of life that animates our physical bodies. And the image that best offers a glimpse of this seventh depth would be Michelangelo's painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, in which the hand of Adam reached out to the hand of God. Between the fingers of Adam and that of God, is a little space, synapse, across which the spark of life leaps to bring life to the flesh. That's the story of our neuronet. They don't actually touch. Our nerves never touch. They synapse. Mm. There's a space. Mm-hmm. So the spirit has landed on the floor of the infinite self here, and the infinite self is Mother Earth, vast infinite self. And it has now become something. Now the male, masculine side, the yin, the yang, or the Shiva energy arises. And we can now mirror, and we are the image at the same time. So the vast oneness has to split into the vast or infinite self and spirit before anything can happen. As in the process of biology, the cells separate to make more cells and make more life. So again, it's important to know here that these two aspects of consciousness or universal life force energy are one and the same. They're just different aspects. There's no artificial division that's created here. And so then we get into the principle. Oh, and the seventh depth is what created the sun, grandfather's son. Okay. So out of this seventh depth comes the sun. And which is the only two bodies that keep every single one of us alive on this planet are grandfather sun and grandmother moon. Mm-hmm. We would not be alive without either one of those two. So, at the, so in the threeness, we talked about the modes. So I want to say again, so these are the principles, and then there's divine truths, or cosmic truths, I should say. So there again, with the three modes, there's no artificial division here. This is simply three modes of how consciousness can descend into matter, how pure light, mind, life force energy descends into matter. And this is the sixth depth at the Trinity, at the trilogy, the three modes, the transition between impersonal and personal human experience. Consciousness or life force energy has densed down enough to become the blueprint that determines the building of each physical form. It supports the functions of the diaphragm and umbilicus, which is, we talked about it hitting the floor of the vast self. The diaphragm is the floor of our breath. Mm. So, and grandmother moon was created here in the sixth depth. So then we talked about then last week all is sound waves, spiral movements, and the hologram. So let's continue with that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to add all that because that's all stuff that I've been allowed to discover since we talked last week. Okay. So, we talked about, let's see, okay. We talked about asteroids dancing to the tune of their planet masters and becoming entrained, right? Mm-hmm. So when such rhythmic movement occurs, it affects its environment. So in the case of air, water, or solid, these vibrations will affect our near environment and be called sound. So our planet herself is producing shock waves in the plasma that fills the solar system, and these shock waves interact with those caused by other planets and produce resonances between the planets and the asteroids. So in short, our whole reality is based on one common factor, and that is periodic change or sound. Our senses are geared to respond to these different sounds, and we're always comparing one sound with another. And we can appreciate only the differences in sound. So let's pretend now that we're looking through a super microscope, one that magnifies so great we can look at single atoms. And we're going to start with a piece of muscle tissue and put it on the minimum magnification and start enlarging this muscle tissue. And it looks pretty darn gooey in nothingness, but all of a sudden, as we keep magnifying it, we see highly organized muscle fibers all nicely aligned. A little bit more magnification will show long fibers made of coiled long molecules placed in regular arrays. And now with a little more magnification, this gooey piece of muscle tissue has turned into a highly ordered, practically crystalline material. As we turn the magnification higher still, we see atoms vibrating in groups around their location in the long coiled molecules. Whole sections of the molecules are undulating regularly. Everything is in a constant, very rapid but orderly motion. And this vibratory motion occurs many million times a second. If we were to put a magnet to this piece of muscle, we'd notice a difference in the undulation of the molecular segments. And if we applied an electric field, it would be the same. And that effect is possibly because we changed the orbits of the outer electrons in the atoms. And so now we're going to magnify a piece of bone. And we're going to see an orderliness appear, highly ordered bone molecules embedded like jewels in webs of long molecular strings. Everything is vibrating. And now let's apply an electric field to the bone and watch the crystal change its length. It shrinks or stretches instantly in response to whatever field is applied. And now we'll magnify it even more, and we'll see the atoms waving back and forth like a field of ripe wheat blown by the wind. They move in unison and beautiful rhythm. So now let's focus in on the atoms that first appear as little shadowy balls vibrating about fixed points in the molecule. And as we magnify more, we see less and less. The electron shell has somehow dissolved, and we're looking at a vacuum. As we further magnify, we see something tiny moving around. We focus on that tiny spot, that tiny dot, right? That we suspect to be the nucleus of the atom. And as we zero in on it, it dissolves. And now all we're seeing is shadowy pulsations. More magnification, and there's nothing. Yet there's a solid piece of matter under the microscope. So reality, the micro reality that underlies all our solid, good common sense reality is made of what we just witnessed. Vast empty space filled with oscillating fields. Many different kinds of fields all interacting with each other. The tiniest disturbance in one carries over to the other. It's an interlocked web of fields, each pulsating at their own rate and in harmony with the others, their pulsations spreading further and further out through the cosmos. Well, when most of us think about waves, we think of the ocean. We think of waves pounding onto the beach. And we need to know that the sun also pulsates with electromagnetic waves of different frequencies. So what exactly is a wave? Well, it's a repeating oscillation of energy, a translation of information through a particular medium. Waves can travel through solids, fluids, gas, thermals, or electromagnetics. Waves are not restricted to a particular medium either, and most waves will move through one medium, and as that medium connects with another medium, they'll continue within the next medium. So a sound, for example, can vibrate a drum skin first. Where the drum skin meets the air, it oscillates the gases in the air and carries the information through the medium of air. Where the air connects with the tympanic membrane of the ear, the information or waveform is translated to the three small bones of the middle ear. And after vibrating through more bone, the oscillation is translated into nerve pulse oscillations. During its journey, the original wave of the drum traverses each of these mediums before being sensed by our neural net. as a sound. So a repeated oscillation or waveform through a medium against the backdrop of time is rhythm, and each movement in nature has a signature, a rhythm. Mother Earth oscillates in specific types of seismic waves, some causing damage, but most of them hardly noticeable. We each walk with a signature pace as our feet meet the ground. Our vocal cords oscillate to the reflection of our thoughts with a unique pace and timing. Our heart valves oscillate with the needs of circulation. Our lungs oscillate as we breathe in and out, unique to our lung size and the cell's needs for oxygen. Even rugged, seemingly solid structures like rocks oscillate depending on their position, size, shape, and composition. A cliff by the seashore will oscillate with each pounding wave. A building in a windy city will uniquely oscillate with the movement of the wind through the streets, and each building oscillates differently depending on its architecture and location. All of these movements and all movements in nature provide recurring oscillations that can be charted in waveform structure, and various events within nature come complete with recurring cycles. Nature's waves are relational to the rhythms of planets and galaxies, and these rhythms translate to electromagnetic energy and kinetic energy, movement energy, which translate to the elements of speed, distance, and mass. Momentum, inertia, gravity, and other natural phenomena are examples then of the cyclical activities that directly relate with nature's wave rhythms. And nature displays two basic waveform structures, transverse and longitudinal. So up and down and across. Waves travel with some form of repetition or periodicity, and the repetition occurring with a particular pace and time reference together forms rhythms. And all around us are wave rhythms that connect with our senses. In sensing the world around us, we don't perceive each wave individually. We perceive the information contained in multiple interactive waves. So harmony is based upon waveforms having a multiple of the same fundamental base. And now we see spirals as part of nature's form, and there is good reason to believe that the sun's electromagnetic rays are spirals rather than waves. Much of nature is arranged in helix or spiral shape. What may not appear to be is most likely to be seen when we peer through its cross section. For example, an ocean wave breaking over a reef may appear to be a half wave form, as it is looked at straight on from the beach. However, if we took a cross-sectional view of the same wave, it reveals its spiral motion. As we watch the water falling from one side of the crest crashing into the trough from the side, the spiral effect comes into view. The combination of the forward movement of the wave to the beach and the sideways movement of the water along the crest creates the surfer's classic spiraling tube or barrel. To ride the barrel or the tube of the wave requires the surfer to stay just ahead of the final eclipsing of the water with the trough. Should the surfer lapse into the center point of the spiral, the surfer will most likely be separated from her surfboard and experience the wipeout. So that's the demonstration of how everything in nature really is. Everything in our world is really a spiraling wave.
Wow, what a presentation.
Now, we get into, I'm sorry, what?
No, I said what a overload of powerful information that you just gave us.
Yeah. And it's, I've been looking, because we all, there's the hermetic principles are there, but it's like, how do I apply them to my life? They're right. This is what I've been given to help us really embody this. So then there's some of these are principles, because the scientific definition of the word principle means it must constitute, create, sustain, and contain everything. And some of these are cosmic truths that are immutable. because not like the principle of reciprocity or Eine, it doesn't, or the truth, that should be a truth. It doesn't create, it's just a truth. Doesn't
Okay.
create, contain, or sustain. It's a truth.
Mm-hmm.
So an immutable truth that doesn't change. Consciousness or mind or universal life force energy remembers that every word spoken, every action taken, and every intention set leaves an imprint. This principle tells us that what we send, or this truth tells us that what we send out in thought, word, or deed will return in some form. You give, and something is given back. You withhold, and something withholds from you. Eine, or reciprocity, is the circulating system of the cosmos, and how you treat others is how you will be treated. The foot that walks on another will surely be walked on. Consciousness, mind, or universal life energy restores what is out of balance, not right away, but inevitably. In community life, Eine takes the form of mutual support. In many villages, indigenous villages around the world, one person's harvest is shared with the whole village. And when someone builds a house or a barn, the entire community shows up to help. This is not charity, it is spiritual thriving. You never know when you will need to be carried, so you carry now. And just as no river drinks its own water, no soul should hoard what flows through them. To be blessed is to be responsible for blessing others. To walk with the truth of Eine, or reciprocity, is to become conscious of our ripple. Every action has consequences, every offering has power, every silence, every smile, every act of generosity has spiritual energetic momentum. That's what spirituality is, it's energy. It's life force energy, this consciousness has momentum. So we do not need to force results when we're in alignment with this truth. Give from a giving heart, and what is ours will find its way to us. In this truth, justice is not handed down by decree. It emerges through energetic connection. Reciprocity, or Eine, is not revenge, it's restoration, and it's always watching. Then we have the truth of cause and effect. That says randomness is an illusion. Nothing simply happens. Every event has an energetic spiritual blueprint that preceded physical manifestation. This truth teaches that all effects have unseen causes, and what appears as coincidence, misfortune, or luck is often the result of spiritual misalignment. Consciousness, or mind, or life force energy responds not only to action, but also to vibration, memory, and spiritual debt. Every experience is a part of a larger network of spiritual causes and effects, sometimes stretching back for generations. And by the same token, it can stretch forward. So this principle teaches us that to solve a problem, one must find its root, and this root is often spiritual or energetic. It's not often, it always, pretty much always is. This approach demands responsibility, not blame. It invites reflection, not superstition. It challenges to look beyond the obvious, to take nothing at face value, and to seek truth beneath the surface. To live in harmony with this truth is to walk through life knowing that your energy, your words, your agreements, spoken or unspoken, shape your path. It is to take accountability for what you do and for what you say and what you carry. In this way, every step becomes sacred, every choice becomes a seed, and every outcome is a message from beyond the veil. The next truth is that of sacred timing. Time is not a clock, it's a rhythm. Not the relentless tick of a machine, but the breathing of the cosmos, the pulse of the divine. In African spirituality, time is not merely a measurement of days or hours. Time is sacred and it's alive. This principle teaches us that everything unfolds according to divine cosmic rhythm, not human schedule. What seems delayed may be in perfect alignment. What seems sudden may be divinely orchestrated. Consciousness, or mind, or universal life force energy moves with intention, not energy. It's not linear, it's cyclical, event-based, and spiritually informed. Things happen when they're spiritually right, not when we demand them. A birth, a death, a marriage, a harvest, these are not logical or social events. They are cosmically scheduled ceremonies in the unfolding of soul and destiny. Many indigenous societies around the globe organize their spiritual and communal lives according to ritual calendars and ancestral clocks. These calendars were not static, they were responsive to nature, seasons, and spirit. So our question should be, is not only what should I do, it should also be when is it aligned to do so. Moon cycles play a central role in sacred timekeeping. The phases of the moon were and still are used to determine when to do most anything, because each phase carries a different spiritual frequency. Once again, Grandmother Moon does not rush. She moves in rhythm, and rhythm is the sacred heartbeat of time. The Akan people of Ghana named children according to the day of the cycle they were born in, not simply as a marker of time, but as a clue to their character, their destiny, and their divine alignment. Time is personality and message, and the day something happens speaks to its essence. To live in harmony, and we know nothing about that because we live by a very static Gregorian calendar that has no essence, it's just dead. So to live in harmony with this truth is to release control and embrace alignment. It is to understand that impatience is often resistance to divine orchestration. And when something delays, it may be that your spirit is not ready or the forces around us are not yet arranged. When something arrives early, it may really test our preparedness. So this truth asks us to slow down and synchronize with the divine metronome, to fill the temple of spirit and consult wisdom, not just watches and the Gregorian static calendar. Because rushing may get us there quickly, and arriving too soon can be just as dangerous as arriving too late. So timing in sacred terms is everything. It is the difference between action and transformation, between effort and destiny. The God process is not in a hurry, and neither should we be. So another truth is the divine idea, truth of naming and vibration. Names are more than labels, they are vibrations. In African spirituality, to name is to declare. To speak a name is to activate a frequency. A name is not just what someone is called, it is who they are, what they carry, and the destiny they were coded to fulfill. This divine truth idea of naming and vibration teaches us that sound holds power, and names are among the most potent forms of that power. Words, when spoken with intentions, are not just descriptions, they are acts of creation. And the name you carry is a thread between your spirit, your community, and the divine. In the Akan tradition of Ghana, again, names are codes, and they link the child to cosmic timing and to a lineage of others born under the same vibration. And they may also give a child a name that reflects the circumstances of their birth, spiritual revelation, or ancestral reincarnation. So every name carries a story, and that story is part of your soul mission. To say a name repeatedly is to reinforce its power. Names are spoken at birth, during rituals and songs in mourning and praise, and so they are rhythmically woven into life because repetition embeds vibration, and vibration creates alignment. So if a name no longer fits, it can be changed through ritual, signaling our spiritual rebirth. And this truth is not just about the names we carry, it's about the words we speak every day, because speech is world building. In indigenous spirituality, proverbs, chants, incantations, and prayers are treated with reverence because they shape reality. To insult someone is not just being rude, it's a spiritual act that can leave a mark. And to praise someone is to lift their spirit and realign their energy. Sound moves things, and sound creates, and sound heals. But breath, or spirit, identifies a person by their given name because the breath is a metaphor for the infinite self, the no form place, which is creating materialism through the movements of the persona carrying the name. So life is made up of breath, materialism, and movement. And to live by this truth is to be conscious of our voice, to honor our own name and those of others, to speak not to impress, but to imprint, to remember that the tongue can curse or bless, bind or release, wound or awaken. Our words are instruments. Our name is an echo of our purpose, and every time it is spoken, the cosmos listen. The truth of spiritual accountability. Spiritual growth is not inherited, it's earned and learned. And this truth reminds us that every soul is responsible for its own alignment. And in indigenous spirituality, you're not only judged by external actions, but by your internal balance, truthfulness, and the consistency between your intentions and behavior. Consciousness or mind, life force energy does not excuse ignorance when it comes to these spiritual principles and truth, because it's impersonal. Right? So true power comes from integrity, the kind that aligns us with the moral architecture of the cosmos. One of the most powerful principles, aspects of this truth is confession, and healing sometimes does not happen until truth is spoken. To ride the spiritual field, we must take responsibility for our footprint in it. This truth confronts the modern tendency to seek spiritual highs without doing the hard work of self-examination. Power is not granted to the charming or the loud, but to those in alignment. And it means living in such a way that our actions and our spirit do not contradict each other. To live by this truth is to walk as if our soul is being weighed by the echoes we leave in our community, for those not yet born, and in the mirror of our conscience. Truth is not optional, it's a force that works with or against us if we're not in alignment. And then the last one is the truth of becoming. Our soul is not here to merely follow rules, it is here to become. This principle teaches us that life is not a static test of pass or fail, it's a journey of unfolding. This tells us that we were not created as finished beings, we were born as seeds of full potential wrapped in layers of ancestral wisdom and spiritual memory. And life is the soil in which that potential is revealed, tested, shaped, and refined. Our soul is expected to evolve, and living by these cosmic truths and principles is only the beginning. Transformation or becoming is our true goal. And as our soul moves through various stages and phases of life, it grows in wisdom, it sheds ignorance, and prepares for return, because death is not an end, it's a passage. And each life lived with consciousness refines the soul for its next descent. And so in this way, becoming is not limited to a single lifetime. In the Yoruba tradition in Africa, the concept of Ori is central to this principle. In Native American tradition, it's the concept of Orenda. In the Sufi tradition, it's called essence. This Ori or Orenda or essence is our inner divinity, the personal spark of consciousness, mind, or life force energy that is within each of us. It's our spiritual compass, and it holds our fullest potential or destiny. So it can also be called a mentality. It does not force us to follow it. We can deviate, but the more we forget and deviate, the more we will only fulfill our fate, which is what society says we must be. The more we align with it, the more we evolve to fulfill our fullest divine potential. So becoming is embodying our divine destiny. Our soul carries fragments of cosmic wisdom that it must rediscover or remember through experience, challenge, and ritual. So life is really a kind of sacred amnesia and then a remembering. Each moment of clarity, each act of courage or forgiveness, each lesson learned are the ways our soul brings itself back together. And there's a story I've heard that when we're born and we take that first breath and cry, we send out seeds of ourself that float on the wind to everybody that we need to and everybody that needs us.
Okay.
So the Dune people of Africa say that a fully realized human being is one who has remembered enough of their original essence to live with wisdom and purpose. To live by the truth of becoming is to trust that we are not meant to stay the same, that struggle is not punishment but preparation, that every hardship carries a message of shaping us. Our soul unfolds like a flower, petal by petal, layer by layer, and no season is wasted. And so this truth liberates us from the prison of perfection, because it tells us that mistakes are not final, healing and growth are not linear, and even confusion has a sacred function. We're not here to replicate someone else's path. We're here to walk our own. And our Ori, our Orenda, our essence, our Entelechy will guide us as we are challenged by our karma and accompanied by our ancestors. Becoming is not an easy job, but it is divine and it is inevitable because we're not finished products. We're a sacred process.
Wow. Sacred process it is. But there's we sometimes associate what's sacred with something that keeps a mystical only language, and it cannot be understood by measurements. And you just proved that we can understand everything that is sacred.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing all this, and all these 199 shows. We've been showing, proving, sharing the ways, the different aspects. We go through a lot of different subjects, but in many of them we cover this understanding of the sacred, of the arcane, the great understanding that is not the fragmented few or the fragmented many different disciplines of understanding that are at the bottom of the pyramid, but the actual understanding that unites all the fragmented understandings.
Yeah.
So that's been a profound and long and a very detailed explanation about this. And what does it take us to next week? What's happening in this 200th version of the show?
I think we need to talk about the gift of grandfather son.
Okay.
Or maybe we'll talk about the cult of the West, the cult of the American dream.
Okay. Well, they're both different but interesting subjects.
Yeah. Let me sit with it and I'll let you know.
Okay. So for now, the audience doesn't know, but it's one of those two, and it's at 7:30. Again, 8:30. 7:30 for me, 8:30 for Central Standard Time in the U.S. And we won't be changing that because it's already changed. And well, we hope to see everyone on the next week. Please visit Aloha Aini Dao Living with sharing 1A, Aloha Aini Dao Tao Living.com. That's our website, and that's where you can join this project, where you can be part. You can be a co-creator, a creator, or you can become a student of the Owl Council House and the Circle Apprenticeship, or anything that you wish to participate in. If you are an awakening soul, this is what awakening should be, we believe, is coming together and doing the work, not just learning about it, not just reading about it, not just being happy about it, not turning things into a business for profit, rather a real profit of creating life and of maintaining, sustaining life, and of changing a system that is here to destroy you and to destroy life as it pushes through. So it depends on us that we actually get this message that this monster will stop one day eating, because we're all participating in it. So we have to stop participating, and this is participating in the other way, the other path back to Mother Earth. So there you go. Visit us and please support us in any way you can, and let us know anything that you wish. And with that, we will see you on the next show next week. Lots of love, blessings, and goodbye.